in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Birdie Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. They go over every car in the lot. And a terrific service department. Quick lane inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It is always a privilege to be joined by the Hall of Famer, Merrill Reese. My friend, it is great to hear you again.
Steve, it's always great to hear from you, and I'm glad you guys are off to another good start.
Yeah, no, good start here. Good start for your team. I want to ask you, though, the delay, which had to happen because of lightning, was it any surprise that both offenses seemed to bog down after that delay because everybody was out of rhythm?
Yeah, it is a little bit, but they were out of rhythm and they were a little bit flat. But one of the coaches today said it was like playing in the Super Bowl where they have about an hour and a half seemingly halftime interview or halftime entertainment. You sit in that locker room before you come out. But the good thing about the Super Bowl was when that halftime took place, they were already up 24-0.
Yeah, that's true. That makes a big difference. What did you think about the play of the defense? They obviously had to play without Jalen Carter all night long. How do you feel the defense ended up playing?
Well, they played well in the second half because Dallas didn't score any points. So That was fine. But listen, when you take Jalen Carter out of the game, you're talking about losing your biggest impact player. I mean, he is an impactful player on every single snap. And I'm sure Dak Prescott was happy to look across the line of scrimmage and see 98 gone.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Seeing him gone. The offense, when they were in rhythm, was it pretty much what you expected to see from them?
You know, it's so funny when you bring that up because I don't know what to expect anymore. I don't think the September games tell us anything. They used to, when teams played their starters for maybe a quarter in the first preseason game and maybe a half in the second, and then they used to call the third preseason game the dress rehearsal. But now they didn't have one starter out there, maybe a young guy like Tyler Steen, who was playing as a starter for the first time. He got some preseason activity. But do you realize that at no time during the preseason, and I'm talking about practice every day, were all 11 starters out there at the same time?
Yeah, and that makes a big difference because somebody asked me about the opening NFL weekend yesterday, and I said Buffalo and Baltimore was exciting. Last night, the Bears and Vikings, that was interesting. The Steelers and Jets, interesting. I said, and I know nothing about any one of those six teams after watching them play. None. I don't know a thing about them because I can't tell you if any of them are any good.
Well, you know when you'll know about the second week of October. Last year, the Eagles started the season with a so-so win against Green Bay in Brazil. Then they came back and they lost to the Falcons when Saquon dropped what would have been a touchdown pass to wrap up the game, and they ended up losing that game. And then they beat a New Orleans team that turned out to be pretty bad. And then they were so bad in Tampa Bay that, I mean, they couldn't move against air that day in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield just ripped them apart. And my son was in from California to watch the game and keep our stats. And he said, Dad, you may as well realize the fact that this team may not win 7 games this year. I said, Nolan, just wait. And they only lost one game the whole rest of the season. So you don't know.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because when fans have asked me, you brought up Penn State to start, they've asked me about Jim Knowles with the defense, and I've all off-season I referenced Vic Fangio. I said it takes a coordinator a while to find out not only what the players can do, but it also takes them a while when they're brand new to also find out what they can't do. Right. It took Vic Fangio 4 games. I said once he figured out the whole thing for all those guys, I said nobody could score on that team. And he was the guy I referenced because I think he's one of the best ever.
Oh, he is. He is. I've been around some really great defensive coordinators over the years. Going back, Jeff Fisher was outstanding, and others that Bud Carson was one of the greatest ever. In fact, I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and everyone knows about Jim Johnson, how good he was. Well, I'll tell you what, Vic Fangio is up there with those guys. He's that good.
Jack Ham always talked to me about Jim Johnson. Always did. You know, I want to ask about the short yardage stuff for a moment. You watch the Bills run it, and they have a big, strong, powerful quarterback in Josh Allen, and they struggle with it. We know Jalen's strong and powerful. What is it about technique that is taught in Philadelphia where they run that play and it's so efficient while others try it and they can't get it done?
I think the fact that the offensive line, you thought when Jason Kelsey left as the center that was going to change, but it didn't because Cam Jurgens is even bigger and maybe even more powerful, and Jalen Hurts can bench press a house. So you have these guys pushing him from behind, and they've worked at it. They have the timing, they have the technique, and it just works about 95% of the time.
It's amazing. To see that. Now the rematch with the Chiefs out in Arrowhead, and they lost their opener to the Chargers. I mean, you've seen enough of Kansas City over time. Where are they different and maybe not? The Eagles are a better team. I mean, we'll find out coming up on Sunday in this particular year if they are. But where have the Chiefs, you think, taken maybe a little step back that's allowed them to come back to the pack a little bit?
Well, I think a wide receiver. For one, and going into this game, it's very possible that they're going to miss their fastest wide receiver because the indication is that the injury is probably going to keep their the fastest wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, out of the game. Yeah. I mean, they still have other good wide receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown, but it doesn't look like Xavier Worthy is going to play. Now, they're not saying that yet. Andy will never give you an indication on injuries. Neither will any other coach, for that matter. But he left the field. He collided with Travis Kelce, and he left, and his arm was just hanging there. So it seems to me that it would be a miraculous recovery for Xavier Worthy to be out there. So they don't have the wide receiver talent that they once did. I'll tell you, though, Travis Kelce played well in the opener, and he's still very good. But I think over the years, it's tough for teams to sustain that for so many years, and the Chiefs have been really as close as you can be to a dynasty for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, the Eagles went through their camp, and I thought it was a drama-free camp. You know, except for the first 6 seconds, you know, it was drama-free for them in terms of being a team. What is it about the personality of this team that makes them so businesslike and appears to not be susceptible to the trappings of all this?
Well, I hate to use a cliche, but, Steve, it all starts at the top. You have an owner in Jeffrey Lurie who gives these guys the best of everything and treats them well and doesn't get into trouble by openly criticizing or evaluating his team. He is an owner, and when one of the coaches left, an assistant coach, Billy Davis, years ago, he said to me, you know, if I ever get to be a head coach, I want to work for an owner like Jeffrey, because all he says is yes. He gives a coach everything that coach needs to succeed. And you see a guy like Nick Sirianni, he's authoritative. Now, he may have been a little over the top early, but he's calmed down a bit. But the players have always liked him, always respected him, and respected him. And the big thing is he is a great communicator, an outstanding communicator, and that's something that a coach like Chip Kelly never had. He just couldn't communicate with his assistants. He couldn't communicate with his players. I had assistant coaches come up and say to me, do you think he's angry at me? He doesn't talk to me. So they communicate well. And another thing, we talk about the Jalen Hurts and the receivers and the tight ends, but one of the big things about a football team is the offensive line. That is so big. I watched the Giants this weekend, and, people will criticize Russell Wilson. It's not Russell Wilson. It wasn't Daniel Jones. For years and years and years, the Giants have not had a good offensive line. And I don't care who you put in at quarterback, if you don't have a good offensive line, you're going to struggle. The Eagles, on the other hand, have the best offensive line coach I've ever been around. In fact, when the players give their schools, you'll hear Cam Jurgens say, Cam Jurgens, Nebraska, or you'll hear Lane Johnson go, Lane Johnson, Oklahoma. And then they go to Jordan Mailata, and he says, Jordan Mailata, Stoutland University. And he is really the best offensive line coach. Yeah. You saw what he did last year when they had Mekhi Becton, who was thought to be a bust with the Jets as a tackle, and he took him and put him at guard, and he had a great season.
Yeah. Now, that's what I like about the Eagles is the owner owns and says yes. The GM is allowed to be the GM. The coach is allowed to be the coach. The assistants are allowed to be the assistants, to be the head coaches of their position. And the players see all that, and they gravitate toward it. That's how I look at the Eagles.
Yeah, the other thing is they set up a great atmosphere, and the players really like each other. There's no drama in the locker room. These guys are just very much together. They're friends. They get together. They eat together. They're just, the atmosphere in this locker room is so good. And another guy who is just absolutely wonderful as a teammate, as a leader, is Jalen Hurts. Yes. People don't see the real Jalen Hurts because they see how unexpressive he is facially on the field. And he doesn't get too high and he doesn't get too low. But believe me, he carries himself like a leader and a face of the franchise.
Merrill, he's a coach's son. And he acts like he's a coach's son. He's a coach's son, and he acts like a coach's son. I did say to Saquon before last season, I said to him, you must wake up every single day, think about those 5 guys and go, yeah.
So, during a game when he was running wild, I said during the broadcast, Eagles fans, if you're really passionate fans, wake up tomorrow morning, open your window, and turn towards North Jersey and yell, "Thank you, Giants."
Yes, no question. Merrill, brilliant as always. I listened to some of it the other day. You were tremendous, and thanks so much for the time you gave today.
Well, Steve, I say the same thing about you every chance I get to listen to a Penn State game. You always do a wonderful job.
Thank you, my good friend. It is a blessing. Thank you so much.
Go Nittany Lions and go Birds.
Go Birds. Thank you so much. The great, the legendary, the Hall of Famer, Merrill Reese, joining us on the show. We will wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
A lot has changed since 1915 when the Mertz family began selling cars here in Central PA at Sunbury Motor Company. But one thing that hasn't changed is the Sunbury Motor Company's commitment to satisfying more customers, selling more cars, and providing you with a tradition of trust. Whether you visit Sunbury Motors Ford, Sunbury Motors Hyundai, or Sunbury Motors Kia, you know you're getting the area's best selection and best prices on both new and pre-owned vehicles. SMC's values of hard work and dedication are as prevalent today as they were over 100 years ago. They take pride in satisfying Central Pennsylvania's automotive needs and providing their customers with the best buying experience possible. Come visit Sunbury Motors Ford and Sunbury Motors Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, or Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf. Sunbury Motor Company, owned and operated by the Mertz family since 1915.